In the last movie, we imported this audio, and then we discovered that we could see it but not hear it. We can see the meters moving and know that it's playing, but we can't hear the output. That's because each track has an input and an output, and I suspect that my output is set incorrectly. So I'm going to Window and the Mix window. There's the input, which I don't need at the moment, and there's the output. It's being routed to bus 1 and 2. Bus 1 and 2 is not patched to my M box and therefore not patched to what you and I are able to hear in this movie, so I need to change it to the default analog outputs for this session. And now we can hear the audio. So that's a fairly common scenario that I wanted to get out of the way pretty early in this training. If you're not able to hear the audio, but you can see it playing, that means it's just headed off into some nebulous output you're not monitoring. So that's how you can check your inputs and outputs on a track. So that's what tracks look like in the mix window, closing the mix window for now, and we're back to the edit window. And this is what a track looks like in the edit window. Each track is listed over here in the track menu, and this column on the side can be hidden or shown using this double arrow at the bottom. Let me jump over to the other side and show you that there's sort of a mirror image over here for clips. You can also hide or show that column using this arrow at the bottom. So back to tracks. The Edit Window View selector gives you choices for looking at a lot of information about tracks. So let's select all, and now that audio file that was sitting over here has now been moved all the way over here so that ProTools can show us all this information about tracks. This is frankly too much information for the edit window, especially on a small project like this. So you can choose which of these parameters that you want to look at in this menu, or you can just say, show me all of them, and then option click on the ones that you want to get rid of. This I/O gives us a replication of what we saw there in the mix window when we reset from bus to analog. We're done with that now, and we can eliminate all options. And if I chose minimal, I'd get the same selection. So a track can be resized. Grab its handle at the bottom and resize it this way. There's a flippy triangle here that lets you display other parameters of the track, including volume, muting, and panning. And then you can add other parameters so that you can look at volume, muting, and panning all together by using these little add and subtract icons. Close that triangle for now. This is elastic audio. We'll get to that in a later movie. We can display waveforms. We can display volume overlaid against waveform. We can display whether the track is muted and then some panning. But most of the time, you're going to want to look at the waveform that's in the track, record, solo, and mute buttons that we'll investigate later, and a choice over here for samples or ticks. Simple rule of thumb here is if it's audio, it's samples. If it's MIDI, it's ticks. We can rename a track. I'll double-click where it says Clockwork here and rename it, and then change it back to Clockwork. My advice on naming of tracks is name it something that gives you information about what you're listening to in this track. If it's sound effects 1 or rhythm section, that's probably not enough information. You need to know that it's explosion sound effect 1 or rain or tire squeal. So track headers, track names, should always contain information about what's going to be heard when you listen to this track. One more thing to tell you about tracks. Stereo tracks edit stereo clips, and mono tracks edit mono clips. Before, we saw that we could resize a track by grabbing its bottom and making it the right length. Let's just grab into this ruler area here, the gray piece between the clip itself and the meters, and choose medium. Now, tracks can be created by going to the track menu and choosing new, or Shift-Command-N. Remember not to do just Command-N because that will give you a new session. So Shift-Command-N for tracks. In the clip bin, we see that we have this one audio file. It's a stereo file containing a left side and a right side. If I use the track menu to create a new mono audio track, and I bring the stereo file over to this mono audio track, it won't go. It will go into the stereo track above it, but not into the mono track below it. However, if I grab one of the mono files, that will go, and the other one will go behind it, and the other one will go behind that. Mono files only work in mono tracks, and stereo files only work in stereo tracks. Now we've seen how we can name tracks and create them. If I hold down the Control key and click on the track, I can delete a track. When I do that, Pro Tools says, "Are you sure?" This is just Pro Tools protecting you, making sure that you don't delete something important. The fact is, I know I want to delete it, so I'll click delete. And we're back to our one track with our stereo file.